Welcome to Unhinged Magi. We got a good
Alright.
video for you guys today. We are going to be talking about a little bit of seller's remorse, I guess, to some extent.
Seller's remorse. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Selling stuff is terrible because you don't have it anymore.
So how many times have you guys sold something and because like maybe it was at one price and then it went up and maybe you sold the cards and you're at the moment you're happy about it, but then you decide you want the cards back. So now you got to go rebuy back things that you'd already purchased before in the past. But now it's just so much more painful to buy it at that new price because like it brings up all the feelings that you had of like how you had it at the old price and if you had just kept it and stuff like that. And also it's like it brings up that fear that maybe it'll go down again and you kind of go through the whole gamut. And what a tough experience that is to kind of get past.
Oh yeah. Everyone knows about the time twister when I traded that away to go get. It's not like selling it, but I got cards for it and I exchanged it for a bunch of other stuff. But there's been times when I sell Magic the Gathering product or I just open that product and then I don't have that product anymore. That was the whole thing with what I should do with the Arabian Nights box. Should I open it or should I sell it to get the money? But if I get the money, then I don't have the box and that kind of stuff. So, but I got rid of a lot of my playable Power 9 a long time ago and had to recently acquire it again. Because Edwin said, you must play with power. You can't just have this graded, and you can't doodle on cards.
I was very forceful about it. I came over and we wrestled and we were like noogie each other and stuff. It was rough times.
A headlock. He pinned me down, made me tap. I went, all right, fine. I will buy it again.
So, but that was a rough process because they're so much more expensive than what they were before. And then it's like you were excited to get them, but then as soon as they showed up, you were like looking on eBay, like, oh, I could have got this deal with that. And it's like,
oh man, I should have bought this one. It's only $2,000 and I spent way more.
But then all those years that went by when they were sitting at that price, like you didn't buy them because you were always worried about the risk of eBay and stuff. So beforehand, it was like I'm worried about the risk and I don't want to buy it from these guys. So then you went to a reputable vendor, but then you paid more. But then since you paid more, then you went the other way and felt bad about that.
You're going to get real stuff. However, I don't want to buy from some. I bought on eBay before and people have sent me fake stuff.
That does happen.
No, it's happened to me.
Yeah.
Like 3 or 4 times. I bought a Black Lotus that came back with being fake and an Ancestral Recall coming back as being fake. Mm-hmm. So then you have to go and fight for your money.
Yeah, I bought.
One person I opened a police report on, and eventually he said, "Okay, fine," because it's thousands of dollars. So if you get a police report, you know where they live, because you can track people down. Specifically, if they live in the United States, you can track them out pretty easily.
Yeah. So that guy refunded your money?
Yeah, he didn't really have a choice. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, if you live in the United States, I mean, it's thousands of dollars. There's a big difference between thousands and $50 here and there.
So I bought a Mox Sapphire one time, and the guy sent out a foil version of a card called Stir the Pride, and like that was all that was like in the box. And then like I tried to call and like he just didn't answer the phone and just like ignored it. And then I put all these complaints into eBay and I was so pissed because like, PayPal gave me most of my money back, not all of it, but most of it. But I was so upset about how this guy was scamming people that at the time you could actually email other buyers for other auctions because you could see them. And I looked at everything else he was selling and I emailed every other single person and said, this guy just scammed me. You're going to get scammed with this card. Don't buy this. And like I single-handedly tanked his account as like hard as I could because I was so angry that this guy was like scamming people. And so I got his account banned and stuff like that. But then eBay removed your ability to email, like when you're bidding and you can see bidders, like you can't see them anymore. So you can't message them and be like, you're going to get scammed by this guy. Yeah. And I actually really didn't like that. But then on the other side of it, like eBay now like favors buyers like all the time. And so like if you're a seller, you're going to get screwed more likely as a seller on eBay now than as a buyer. As a buyer, you got more protection. But as a seller, like if somebody just says like, oh, it never showed up. And I had one time where I sold someone a card and I had all the tracking numbers, but I hadn't put it into the system. And then Holly threw away the receipts, and like so I didn't have the tracking number anymore. And so the guy was like, "Do you have a tracking number?" And I'm like, "No, I lost it." And then he's like, "I didn't get it." And then eBay refunded him, so he had my card and he had the money. And
Oh,
so that kind of thing started happening. So now it's like if I sell anything, it's like only with tracking. There will be tracking, and there will
yeah,
be insurance, and you're paying for it. Unless it's a really expensive item and there's enough margin that I'll just go ahead and eat it, right?
yeah, exactly.
As a seller, though, you take a big risk selling on eBay.
You do, you take tons of risk.
But
But
anyways, this is about buying.
yeah, this is about well buying and selling really because you sold the
Yep.
cards. Now you have to go acquire the cards, and now they're at an inflated value.
Yep.
So there is a thing where you have to empty your bank account for something that you already had that was actually cheaper. Like
Right.
I used to buy Beta lightning bolts for well $10, but now you can't do
Yep.
that.
Yeah, I think the last time I sold a tabernacle, like I bought them, they were like $30 cards for a really long time. A tabernacle at Pendrell Vale. So
Oh yeah,
I sold them for like $30 when I sold my collection in college. That's somewhere about that value. And then I bought them back somewhere around like $50. And then I owned them until they went like over like 200 or something. And I sold them thinking like, wow, I made a really good profit here. You know, they'd gone up a bunch. And at the time, I thought I was going to be getting out of Magic for a while, at least like that vintage scene. I didn't know old school was going to start or anything like that. This is like way back in like 2011. So I sold those tabernacles for like $200. And then just like, I think last year, somewhere about that, I bought two tabernacles again. And I think one of them I paid like $1,600 for, and the other one I paid $1,800 for. So like, you know, 10x the price of like what I sold it for like just a little while ago. Like all of a sudden I'm having to like really fork out the cash. But now they're like $3,000 each. So
yep,
I mean, it works out, but it's like it's so painful at the time when you're wanting to
yeah.
buy back in.
It feels like you're going backwards.
Yeah, it really does.
So the best thing to do is just hold on to it forever.
Yeah, if you can buy those old cards and just hold them, then that's the way to go. A good friend of mine, he doesn't always like his name mentioned, so I won't mention it. But he's a big player, very active in the old school community. He's got like multiple sets of collector's edition, and he has like, I mean, like a complete collection of like all the old cards. But he has them from when he bought them, when he was like in I think the end of grade school or something like that. And so like everything he bought, I mean, he bought for like pennies on the dollar compared to what they're at today. But like now he's starting to actually buy new ones. I think he just picked up like an Alpha Lotus like a little while ago and stuff. So you know he paid some cash
Well,
for
that's a
that.
big that's a big pickup.
Yeah, that's a big pickup. But it's like most of his collection like he's just had for years. And I think he actually sold a bunch of things to get that Alpha Lotus. So it wasn't just like a straight cash. It was like a moving some things off in order to buy that. But still
That,
it's like since he had them the whole time, he captured all that value.
yeah, that's the one thing that's great about Magic the Gathering. You can really just shift it around. So if you really want something and you actually have stuff,
Hmm.
you can shift it into another one. Like I just traded
Yeah.
3 Power 9 cards from Unlimited to get a 9.5 with 2 10s for a beta.
Yeah.
So I mean that was huge because it helps my collection and that's what I really wanted. I have the playable now, so I don't really need the graded power
Yep.
or the lower condition, and I can trade those off.
But you know, I do think it needs to be mentioned that that ability to do what you just said, I think that more exists in old school format and less in like other formats. Because like if you like get a bunch of standard cards and then the standard cards rotate out of that block, then they all drop in price a whole bunch. And so you
Well,
can't swap in and out. But
you
like
see,
in
I'm going to kind of disagree with you on that one because with the standard block, you actually have these premium cards. So if you actually go in and you have the premium cards, then you can trade those premium cards for the new premium cards of standard. So, like for Zendikar Rising, they actually have these expedition cards and that kind of stuff. Those are going
uh,
to kind of maintain their value. You can trade those out and swap them. So if you actually buy the Zendikar Rising boxes, you have these other extra cards that you can actually trade in and swap.
so you're telling me that you don't think that when a card rotates out of standard, its value is going to drop?
No, no, no. That is not what I said. I said there's cards inside the actual box set that actually usually you can
Oh,
trade.
okay. You're saying there are some cherry pick cards that don't drop.
There definitely are.
Okay. That's different than saying, like, because I thought you said you're going to disagree. I thought you were saying, like, on the whole. You just meant with specific cases.
Well, that goes with anything else. Even in old school, there's specific cards that, you can trade, but you're not going to get as much value out, right? So it's the same thing at every single level. It's just a different level of money.
Yeah, to some extent, but I think it's much less. That overall thing of like your average card dropping in value is much less in old school, I would say.
Well, it's not going to drop in old school because old school is different. There is a difference.
Exactly. Yeah, that's my point.
Concern. However, with standard, there is still that there.
Yeah.
As time progresses onward, those values, the ones that are actually the big cards, the king cards, will actually maintain some of their value, even though they're going to be printed into oblivion. They are still maintaining some value.
Yeah, that's the thing I like so much about old school, and that's kind of my point, is like you can have like a deck and put it in a closet for like 3 years and then come back and they're all still good playable cards, and people will trade you for those cards, and they'll still have like their relative value is still going up. But what I do see though is like things move in different times, like, and this is like kind of across the board in just Magic, not just old school. But what I'll see is like, let's say there's like a big price uptick in like old school cards. You'll see like the big cards get hit first, like your Power 9, your Dual Lands, your Tabernacle. They'll like have a big spike up, your Mishra's Workshop. And then those will be so high compared to like all the others that eventually start seeing like the second tier cards kind of moving up. The ones that are much more common but very playable, like your Lightning Bolts, your Islands, your Disenchants, your Regrowths, your Demonic Tutors. And those kind of all start to move up. And then eventually everyone's like, gosh, everything is so expensive. But I could go get this beta card that's less played. I'm trying to think of like a good example. Benelishiro or something like that. Like something that's like doesn't see an awful lot of play. But then that one will eventually come up because people will be like, dude, this beta common's $1. Okay, yeah, sure, I'm going to buy that. And then those start creeping up. So it seems like things kind of go in like phases.
Yeah, I agree with that because that's pretty much how everything goes as time travels on. I mean, if you look at the Kaladesh boxes, they're going up. If you look at the even Ixalan, Rivals of Ixalan, the boxes are going up.
Yep.
So, I mean, when you look at these individual things, everything on a whole always tends to just rise. But, but for selling it, that's a different story. When you sell it and then you have to rebuy back to get your position back, that's the bad part. But what's going to happen eventually with old school is that there's only going to be a select few that can actually afford to play the game.
Yeah, and that's actually unfortunate.
And that is actually happening currently. That's been happening for a while. People get priced out. This is why I don't buy a bunch of alpha, because I always assume that it's just, too expensive, really. Yeah. So, I mean, I may be able to get an alpha 40 deck, but I'm not going to get a King Dingaling alpha 40 deck where it has all the power and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I might not have the dual lands. I might just play with my standard blue rotation.
Yeah, I'm a lot less incentivized to dump a ton of money into a format that just will not allow proxies. And like Alpha 40 is one of those. Like they won't even allow beta. Like they want proxies, or they want alpha, I mean. And like the Swedish formats that only allow like alpha, beta, unlimited, like no revised. Like I've never been interested in trying to target that, to play that format.
Think about it, that with that pigeonhole right there is the same thing with old school having a pigeonhole as well. As long as you're not allowing proxies.
That's the difference right there.
The difference. I mean, I understand that. I'm just pretending like maybe old school doesn't allow proxies. Okay, we'll just pretend that's in effect. Then it's the same exact scenario.
Yep.
When we allow proxies, that's completely different.
Yeah. So even in a scenario where proxies are not allowed, at the very least, if a format still has stable or growing value, then I still think there's a case to be made for people buying into it. And the reason is because, like, I've said this in other videos, like, you put $500 in and you get your mono black deck that's got like, mostly revised stuff, maybe a couple money cards here and there. So you could maybe even get it for like 200.
That's the good thing about currently with old school is that you can still buy at the lower level at a cheaper rate, like revised Chronicles and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
That to me is actually impressive about old school because there are a lot of cheap cards.
And so this plan is like, so you buy like your black deck, You play it for a while, and then eventually you're like, okay, I'm super bored of mono black. I've played this forever. I want to change it up. And so since your cards, because in this format, they maintain their value, unlike others, even though what you said is true, it's an expensive format. You can now trade that $500 deck into a $500, maybe a blue deck, and that changes it up for you. You haven't like lost any like net value. And then maybe you add your first dual land, and you add your soul ring. You know, you get some.
That sounds like another video we did.
yeah. So it's, I mean, there's that path that's there. So I like that exists in old school, and I don't feel like that exists as well in other formats, because you can't be as like sure that the cards hold their value.
No, they don't really. I mean, in standard, they don't really hold their value forever. They will rotate out. However, the staples tend to hold their value longer.
Yeah.
All right. And so you can actually then trade them as they rotate out in order to acquire the new product.
Yep.
For standard.
Yeah. So
Sorry. I mean, standard cards usually don't really affect modern that much. And so usually you can just dump them. You know?
Yep. Yeah. So going back to the original topic, I feel like that's hard to swallow, rebuying cards that I'd previously owned at a higher price than what I sold them at. That's been hard to swallow, but like so far, it's turned out to be the right choice based on the direction of the overall format. And I suppose that'll only change if like the cards ever go through like a massive consolidation phase, and that's a whole separate discussion. Maybe we could like talk about that in a little like in the next video. But like I kind of don't think that's actually really going to happen, because Magic is actually something where people actually want the asset. They're not just buying it to make money.
That's also another problem. When people buy an asset and they just want to hold on to it, then it never leaves. And so that drains the market and becomes more rare and more rare and more rare.
Yep.
Which actually speeds up the price that going up.
Okay, I think that's pretty good for this video.
All right.
Cool. So
we're on to our next video.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And for anyone who's watching this, we just, probably by the time you're watching this, we just completed the sales of our first revised box. We're going to be cracking that sucker open. I think it's next Saturday, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so next Saturday on live stream, we will be cracking that revised box open, putting the packs into tamper-proof other packages, and then shipping them off to all the people that purchased them. So we'll do that
back
live.
Together.
Yep. Yeah, we'll be back together. We'll be, because he'll be like totally good and clear at that point. So we'll be in the same room again, which will be great.
Pretty much totally clear right now. We're just, the doctor said, yeah, you're good to go, but we're giving it a few more days.
Yep, we're just being safe. That's all. Okay, so thanks everybody.
All right. Talk to y'all soon.
Bye.
Bye.